If you find yourself here on this page, there's a good chance you're facing some type of hardship on your journey of spiritual innovation. Well, the good news is many spiritual innovators have come before you and written and spoken about this issue and are here to help you along the way.
It's important in this work to have a community of support as part of this undertaking. It can be lonely work and it can feel isolating. And for anyone who feels called to do spiritual innovation, my experience says build a deep bench even as you start. And that deep bench is of people who are your cheerleaders, people who are your challengers, people who love you no matter what, people who can empathize when things are going off the rails and you feel stuck. And then there are resources like who are the ancestor companions that you want to keep in your back pocket, that you go to in those moments when there's not a real life human. For me, it's bell hooks, right? Or Audre Lorde. I read Audre Lorde and I feel like, okay, I got a word. So who are those folks that you carry with you and who companion you? The other that I think of when things get hard and that I've drawn on a lot is spiritual direction or spiritual companionship. Um, I in my case, my director listens to me whine a lot and then gives me a good word and I'm good. And so I firmly believe in spiritual accompaniment, paid or unpaid. But who is that elder, mentor, spiritual guide that their sole purpose is to come alongside you and hold space for your soul?
I see you, been there. We'll probably be there again. And that you're not alone. I think anyone who is, again, really like boldly and imaginatively trying and attempting new things, you're going to come across a lot of challenges and roadblocks. And there's a reason why that thing hasn't been done yet or it doesn't exist yet. But I think with any kind of creative project, you're going to need to really, I think, know what your North Star is. And that's a process, I think, of constant revisitation and constant rerouting itself. So, I think that's where companions are crucial. And also, there's a difference between isolation and solitude. I think you really want to honor yourself and have a clear kind of conversation with yourself about where you're at. And I want to also lift up, really just thinking about the seasons, right? Like it would be unnatural, rather, for a tree to just persist, unless you're an evergreen tree. That's, there's something sacred about that as well. But it would just be unnatural for any organism essentially to be persistent in its way at all times, right? So seasons, I think, naturally suggest that there's an ebb and flow, and that there is a cycle. There is a beginning and an end at times, and to be really honest with yourself about what season you're in, because I think it's very easy, especially when you're the only person that like really cares about this thing, right? And sometimes you might even find yourself where you're like, am I even speaking the same language as other people? Probably not. I feel very alone because I don't feel heard or seen. And that can be a very isolating place. But yeah, to really just pay attention to, the season that you're in and what might be needed in that time. And I think if you're constantly like pressuring yourself to be in summer, maybe it's time to actually sort of think about the harvest and think about learnings that you've shored up. And then, when it comes to winter, like maybe it's time to really just compost some of those things and share that out with your community, right? So regeneration, like I think that's kind of the key when you're feeling stuck, is to know that this will pass.
What I've learned through my experience is the importance of stepping away and regrouping. And it has paid off every single time. It, what can be a challenge is to discern how long to step away. And I like to think that sometimes it's not the length of time, it's the intention brought to that time. And so, do I step away and burn myself out a little bit more, or do I step away and really steep into what is prayer for me, or meditation, or reconnecting with what I consider to be holy or life restoring? And I think for me, that has become the key.
I think I would be remiss if I did not say that, um that we're kind of living in a time where not only is it vital for there to be strong and clear and rooted leadership, but that also that role is so challenging that there's few incentives for people to really step into that, right? So for anyone who finds themselves in that position, or is actively moving into that position, A, thank you, and B, yeah, you kind of have to know that that is going to come with some um, pressure and gravity, and to be really prepared. Like when you're stepping into a role like that, um, you don't have to wait until crisis happens in order to act. There's so many things that kind of can be done upstream, and um, you know, sometimes I feel like I'm sort of preaching to the choir because most folks who are in this position have kind of been thrust into these roles from very early on in their life, not by choice. Sometimes very much out of survival and necessity. Um, but yeah, I think maybe that's a good thing to kind of note is that oftentimes because leaders are sort of equipped, from having experience being in these roles out of survival and necessity, they're sort of leaning on their survival instincts and skills to show up. And I want to just posit that. There's a difference, right, in terms of leaning into your survival instincts versus leaning into the practices and the skills. And what I think is important to note there is that being a leader, I think, really does require some very, very important skills, to skillfully tend to the people that you're serving, to skillfully build the thing that you're doing, and to really enact the change that you want to see in the world. So, what are those things that you can do upstream? There's every person is unique and different things will work for them, but one thing that I feel is pretty crucial is having some rooted practice in embodiment, and some would say somatics, and ways for you not to just process in the head, but to really like bring that down to your body and into your heart. And oftentimes that may include practices that really root you into the earth, and into the natural world. Um, a very dear friend of mine recently, again, another theater artist, noted just the um, significance of even having an interspecial or interspecies kind of relationship, or perhaps even a cosmic relationship, ways in which you are really communing with the beyond. And Yeah, and I think maybe there's at times, ironically, something that will happen where you're working so hard on the thing that that is really meant to and intended for the spiritual development and growth of the people that you serve, and yet you yourself might be spiritually malnourished. So really tending to that. And of course, I think that there's just also like really practical ways when that crisis does happen, if and when it does happen, that there are people who that this is their practice actually to really tend to people through that crisis, whether it's burnout, whether it's conflict, rupture, and to honor the fact that the ecology is so abundant in that manner, like that there are some people who have truly been called to do that work, and like kind of midwife you through one place to the next.